19-year-old Ashley Wadsworth from Canada crossed the ocean in late 2021 after meeting Jack Seppel online, dreaming of romance in Chelmsford, Essex. Months later, in February 2022, her dream became a nightmare. Angered that Ashley wanted to return home early, Jack strangled her, then stabbed her over 90 times in their shared flat. The savage attack shocked detectives. This is the heartbreaking tale of a social media romance that ended in unimaginable violence and a life sentence. Ashley Wadsworth grew up in Vernon, British Columbia, surrounded by the rugged beauty of the Okanagan Valley. She was the kind of girl who lit up rooms with her easy smile and adventurous spirit. Her family described her as deeply loving, with a strong moral compass shaped by her Mormon faith. She loved the outdoors, hiking, camping, and exploring the lakes and mountains near her home. But from a young age, something else pulled at her heart. The idea of faraway places and the boys she had connected with across the ocean. It started innocently enough when Ashley was around 12 years old. She came across a Facebook page or online forum where she began chatting with a 15-year-old boy named Jack Seppel, living in the United Kingdom. What began as casual messages between two kids, separated by thousands of miles, slowly deepened over the years. They shared stories about their days, their dreams, their frustrations. Jack seemed charming in those early exchanges. Funny, attentive, interested in her life in Canada. For Ashley, who was curious about the world beyond Vernon, the connection felt exciting, almost magical. As she entered her teens, weeks the friendship evolved into something more romantic. They talked about meeting one day, about building a life together. Ashley's family knew about Jack. He had even presented himself well enough in occasional video calls or messages that her mother didn't immediately object. By the time Ashley turned 19, she was on a gap year before starting university. She had saved money, secured a 6-month tourist visa, and made up her mind. In November 2021, she boarded a plane from Canada to the UK. Her heart was full of hope as the aircraft touched down. She had pictured this moment for years, stepping into Jack's arms, exploring English towns hand in hand, maybe even staying longer if things felt right. Jack, now 23, lived in a modest 1-bedroom flat on Tennyson Road in Chelmsford, Essex. When Ashley arrived, and he greeted her warmly. The first weeks were a whirlwind of new experiences. They walked through the historic streets of Chelmsford, visited local spots, and settled into domestic life in the small flat. Ashley posted cheerful updates on social media, photos of her smiling beside Jack, captions about finally being together after all those years of chatting online. But cracks began to show sooner than she expected. Jack had a history that Ashley's family only learned about later. Offenses involving online harassment, assault, and breaching restraining orders dating back to 2014. In the flat, he could be controlling. He didn't like Ashley talking too much with friends back home, or even making new ones locally. Her phone sometimes went missing or was monitored. She started using secret social media accounts to reach out when she felt isolated. And still, Ashley tried to make it work. She was young, in love, and determined not to let distance or small arguments ruin what she had crossed an ocean for. She attended the local Mormon church in Chelmsford, finding comfort in the community there. Friends from church noticed her warmth, but also sensed something off when Jack was around. As the weeks turned into months, Ashley began missing home more intensely. The British winter felt damp and gray compared to the crisp Canadian air she knew. She thought about her family, her parents, her sister Haley, the familiar routines in Vernon. By late January 2022, she had made a decision. She booked a flight back to Canada for February 3rd, just days away. She wanted to return early, regroup, and figure out her next steps. Perhaps the romance had been better in the fantasy of online messages than in the reality of daily life in a small Essex flat. She confided in a few close friends at church about her plans, expressing a mix of sadness and relief. The morning of February 1st, 2022, started ordinarily enough in the Tennyson Road flat. Ashley and Jack were together in the one-bedroom space they shared. A neighbor later recalled seeing them and noting that Jack had even apologized to Ashley about something before the neighbor left for a medical appointment around 9:30 a.m. The flat fell quiet after that. No one outside knew that tensions were simmering beneath the surface. Jack had discovered Ashley's flight booking. The news hit him hard. Anger flared at the thought of her leaving him. Sight of the online dream slipping away after she had finally come to him in person. Sometime between roughly 11 a.m. and midday, the atmosphere in the flat shifted dramatically. Ashley felt the change in Jack immediately. His mood darkened. His words grew sharp and accusatory. She sensed danger but tried to calm things down at first. She reached for his phone. Her own was broken or inaccessible, and began sending frantic messages. Around 12:38 p.m., she typed out pleas for help. To friends at the Mormon church in Chelmsford, including a young missionary named Jamie, she wrote, "This is Ashley. Please help me. It's an emergency." Similar messages went to family contacts back in Vernon, though it was the middle of the night there, so responses wouldn't come quickly. She sent several in quick succession, yes, her fingers moving fast on the screen as fear took hold. These would become her final outgoing communications, desperate signals from a young woman realizing she was trapped with someone unraveling. The exact moment things changed remains seared in the timeline of evidence. Jack's anger boiled over into violence. He strangled her first, his hands closing around her neck in a surge of rage, fueled by the fear of abandonment. Ashley fought back. Bruises later found on her arms and legs told of a struggle. But she was overpowered in the confined space of the bedroom. Once she was unconscious or incapacitated from the strangulation, Jack didn't stop. He left the room briefly, going to the kitchen where he selected a knife with an 11.5 centimeter blade. Returning to the bed they had shared as a couple, and he began stabbing her repeatedly in the chest and abdomen. The attack was ferocious and unrelenting. Post-mortem examinations would later reveal at least 90 wounds, deep, savage incisions that pierced her heart, lungs, liver, and stomach. Blood soaked the bedding and the floor around the bed. The brutality shocked even seasoned detectives who arrived at the scene later. In those final moments, as the life drained from her, Ashley's last thoughts were likely of home, of her family waiting in Vernon, of the mountains and lakes she loved, of the future she had imagined, but would never see. She had no chance to say goodbye, no final call to her mother or sister. Her last words to the world were those urgent text messages sent from Jack's phone. Cries for help that went unread for critical hours. Jack, breathing heavily after the frenzy, stood over her body in the bed. He did not immediately call for help or show remorse in a way that sought redemption. Instead, around 12:45 p.m., he picked up his mobile phone, now smeared with Ashley's blood, and recorded a video. In it, he addressed her sister Haley, though the message was never sent. With Ashley's lifeless body visible in the background, he spoke in a labored voice. He said he loved her, that he was sorry, that he couldn't ever let you leave. He muttered that his head was fucked and apologized specifically to Haley for taking her sister. The video captured the raw aftermath. His confession mixed with a twisted expression of regret and possession. After recording, Jack left Ashley's body where it lay in the bed they had once shared romantically. He went about some ordinary activities in the flat for a while, as if trying to process or compartmentalize what he had done. He sent messages pretending everything was fine. Later, texts from his phone, written in Ashley's name or impersonating her, claimed that the emergency was over and all was okay. These were sent a couple of hours after her desperate pleas, a cruel deception that delayed any immediate rescue. He also messaged his own mother on WhatsApp earlier in the sequence, admitting he had beat up Ashley really bad, describing throwing her around and punching her. His mother responded with concern, but the full horror was still unfolding. Throughout the afternoon, Ashley's church friends in Chelmsford grew worried when they finally saw the midday messages. They tried reaching her, and when they couldn't get a response at the flat, they contacted emergency services. Separately, back in Canada, Ashley's sister Haley had been trying desperately to reach her. With Ashley's phone broken, Haley called Jack's number repeatedly. When she got no satisfactory answer, she grew alarmed and contacted Essex police for a welfare check. At around 4 p.m., 2 police officers arrived at the Tennyson Road flat. They knocked and announced themselves, but heard movement inside without the door opening. Concerned for Ashley's safety based on the reports, they forced entry at approximately 4:13 p.m. What they found was a scene of unimaginable horror. Jack Seppel was sitting in the bed next to Ashley's body. He was calm, eerily so, when officers burst in. At that exact moment, he was on a FaceTime call with his sister Nadia. During the call, he had told her, "Nadia, I've killed Ashley," and then turned the camera to show her the body. But the call ended abruptly as police took control of the situation. Officers noted Jack's demeanor. He was composed enough to explain that the attack had happened 2 to 3 hours ago. He admitted to strangling Ashley and then stabbing her repeatedly. Evidence was overwhelming: his DNA on the knife handle, the blood everywhere matching Ashley, the wounds consistent with the knife from the kitchen. In the flat, investigators also discovered the blood-smeared phone with the unsent video confession. Jack was arrested on the spot and later charged with murder. The days that followed brought waves of grief to Ashley's family across the Atlantic. Her father Ken received the devastating call from Haley. "Ashley's dead. Jack's murdered her." Her mother Charmaine spoke of the profound trauma, while emphasizing Ashley's loving nature and how her trust in the online connection had cost her everything. Friends from the Mormon church mourned the bright young woman who had sought help too late. The community in Vernon rallied around the family, sharing stories of Ashley's kindness and her adventurous dreams. At Chelmsford Crown Court, the case moved quickly. In September 2022, Jack Seppel pleaded guilty to Ashley's murder during a trial preparation hearing. The prosecution, led by Simon Spence KC, laid out the brutality, a brutal and cowardly attack, driven by anger over Ashley's decision to return home prematurely. The judge, the Honorable Mr. Justice Murray, described the gratuitous infliction of some 90 wounds on her body. On October 10th, 2022, Seppel was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years and 6 months before he could be considered for parole. He showed little reaction in court. Later, he sent an apology letter to Ashley's family, acknowledging that nothing he could write would bring her back or ease their pain, expressing regret for his actions. The story of Ashley Wadsworth and Jack Seppel serves as a stark warning about the dangers that can hide behind glowing screens and long-distance romances. What began as innocent chats between two young people evolved into a relationship where control and obsession took root. Ashley crossed an ocean full of hope, only to find violence in the place she thought would be her new beginning. Her final moments, struggling for breath, sending those desperate texts pleading for help, were enduring an attack of unthinkable savagery, highlight how quickly a dream can shatter. In the quiet of the one-bedroom flat on Tennyson Road, the exact moment things changed was not marked by dramatic shouting heard by neighbors or a single explosive argument caught on camera. It was internal, a tipping point in Jack's mind when Ashley's plan to leave became intolerable. From online pen pals to shared domestic life to murder, the progression was tragic and swift. Ashley's last texts, "This is Ashley, please help me, it's an emergency," echo as a final cry from a young woman who had once believed in love across the miles. Her family continues to grieve, asking the questions that have no easy answers. What were her last words? Did she call out for them in those terrifying seconds? Did she know how much she was loved? And the investigation revealed no prior major incidents reported to police in the flat, but signs of coercive control had been there. Ashley reaching out secretly, feeling the need to hide communications. Jack's past offenses suggested a pattern, yet the full danger only became clear too late. Today, Ashley's memory lives on in the hearts of those who knew her best. Her love for the outdoors, her faith, her warmth, these are the things her family holds on to. The flat in Chelmsford stands as a silent witness to a romance that promised everything and delivered horror. Jack Seppel remains behind bars, serving his sentence, while Ashley's story circulates in true crime discussions, documentaries, and warnings about online relationships. Year to year, the heartbreaking tale reminds us that behind every glowing profile and sweet message can lie complexities unseen. Ashley Wadsworth, 19 years old, dreamer from Canada, crossed the ocean for love. Instead, she met a nightmare that ended with over 90 stab wounds, a body left in the bed they shared, and a killer who confessed on video while her blood was still fresh on his hands. Her final texts went unanswered in time, her last moments stolen in a frenzy of rage and possession. Justice came in the form of a life sentence, but for her family the pain remains eternal. In the end, the ocean she crossed was not just water, it was a divide between hope and tragedy, between the girl who believed in fairy tale endings and the brutal reality that claimed her.